Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. I know that we have a number of attendees joining us at this point in time. So whilst the numbers are slightly climbing, let's allow for another minute or two to just allow for as many of our attendees to join. Tana, you can share the screen for us again. I can see the numbers have slightly stabilized. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the first in our series of webinars related to choosing subjects for 2023. As you know, our registrations for 2023 opens on the 1st of September, but many parents, especially grade 9 parents, might be wondering, how do I choose the right subject for my child? And maybe your child is in grade 10 or even 11, and it's a daunting task to choose those subjects. I know I've got a child in that age group, and you might even consider changing subjects. So hopefully we'll give you some insight this afternoon into the offering that we have and the subjects that you can choose. My name is Suzanne. I head up client engagement at Impact. This afternoon, I'm joined by Tana now. Tana is our subject specialist for the languages. Tana will be presenting on the languages itself, and she's supported by Wendy Pepler, also from our languages team, as well as Kyra. So before we get started with the actual presentation, let's just get some of the logistics out of the way. If you can hear me at this point in time, all good. You should be hearing me now. If you can't, then please make sure that your volume is turned loud enough, that you're using your audio volume, that speaker is turned loudly. You will notice that you are currently muted. This is just to minimize the background noise as much as possible. Towards the end of the presentation, we will allow for some answering questions and answering. I'll unmute you from my side, but please do unmute yourself as well by clicking on the little microphone. You don't have to wait until the end to ask your question. You can pop us a question into the Q&A box provided in the action bar for Zoom, and we'll grab that question from you and get some feedback over to you. Kyra is going to launch a poll for us. So just before we start, Kyra, we can have a look at when did you first register with Impact? We've opened this up for a little bit of a broader audience. So we just want to get an idea if you're currently with Impact, if you are thinking about joining, if you are one of those parents who started somewhere through the year, this will give us an idea. So Kyra, perhaps if you can just change the polling settings for, oh, I see it's just us that cannot vote, obviously, my bad. Okay, we can keep that poll running for a little bit. I'm not sure if our attendees sees that. I haven't seen yet, but I suppose the results aren't published yet. So let's get into the presentation this afternoon. So we're focusing on languages this afternoon, but I'm going to give a quick introduction into the compulsory subjects before Tana takes it away and tells us more about the languages. So You know that we have a number of compulsory subjects that a learner has to take in the FET phase, the so-called FET phase, further education and training phase for grades 10 to 12. The learner is no longer of a compulsory school-going age. They actually elect to do a 3-year course, the National Senior Certificate, and as such, they must complete at least 7 subjects. Of those 7 subjects, they have certain compulsory subjects that they have to choose, and then there's 3 elective subjects that they can choose as part of their package, or obviously add some additional. So the compulsory subjects that they need to have is, first of all, life orientation. So this remains a compulsory subject that they need to have throughout grade 10 to 12. We often get this question, can't I replace life orientation with something else? Well, this is a National Senior Certificate requirement, so you have to have life orientation. Mathematics or mathematical literacy will host a session specifically on maths later in this series of webinars. However, it's important to know that the learner needs to choose between either one of these 2. And then obviously in terms of languages, this is the subject that we would talk about today. A learner has to have a home language. And then they must have at least one more language on at least the first additional language level. So we do see here and there, and I know Tana will touch on this as well, that often parents want to have first additional language don't want first additional language, but both the subjects on home language level. And we can definitely have a conversation on the benefits of those or the backdoors of those. But bottom line is, these subjects on the screen currently are the subjects that's compulsory to your child. They do have choices in their home language with MPAC to choose between Afrikaans or English as their home language. And then for first additional language, they can choose between either Afrikaans, English, or brand new to the FET phase as of 2023, isiZulu as a first additional language. Quite important for parents to know is that this is not a second additional language. It is not a second language. We often say they need at least 2 languages. This is still on a first additional language level, and therefore the standard is quite high in this level. So that's just a note from my side. So we also offer a wide variety of elective subjects. So once you've chosen between the languages, the learner now gets to choose elective subjects. And here they have a list of subjects to choose from. And throughout August, we'll be presenting a variety of webinars to give you insight into some of these subjects. But as you can see on the screen, accounting, agricultural sciences or agricultural management practices, business studies, computer studies, hospitality, information technology, life science, physical science, visual arts, tourism, and the list goes on. But you can always have a look at our registration portal to go through some of those. And we also have a document available on our website called our subject requirements document. And this will give you further insight into what those subjects are all about, as well as which subjects has, for example, practical components, which is another consideration. The importance of subject choices relates to the learner's career path. So it's so young still when the kids are only grade 9 to already know what I will one day, when I finish my grade 12, what am I going to do? Am I going to study further? Am I going to go to a university, a technical college, or do I intend to go into the business world or take a gap year, or whatever be the case? What is important for your child at this point in time is to at least have an idea of what they are interested in, because what they are interested in will often determine their path, and this also gives them an idea into the subjects, what they need to take. And this does take a little bit of research. So when the learner has a particular interest, let's say, for example, they are really, really interested in becoming a doctor one day, it would be important for them to go onto various universities' websites to look at what the requirements are. For medicine, for example, you can't get away from core maths and science. You need those two subjects. But it's often a misconception that you need biology. You would often find someone that wants to do a law degree, yet they think they need science to do a law degree. So this is where that interest comes in, to see what kind of pathway they are interested in. So ensure that you select subjects with your child based on their interest. Be informed about what the various institutions out there, especially in terms of additional study and further studies beyond their grade 12, will entail. And not all universities have the exact same requirements. So we do get questions on, my son, daughter wants to become a chef, what subjects do they need? It really depends on where are they going to complete that qualification, because based on where they're going to complete the qualification and also the level at which they will complete it will often determine where they need to go study. Something very interesting about agricultural management studies, if they want to become a farmer, they are the option of studying a BSc versus rather be agric. There are so many choices out there. Research, moms and dads, research. That's what it's all about. And determine how much assistance you will have. A nice place to start is on our Optimi Plus website, our online store. We have it's online. It's an online tool, so this does not replace a formal assessment, but it's a really awesome online tool for something like $95 that you can download. Have your child complete that as openly and honestly as possible, and that will already give them a good idea in terms of what my interests are and can I consider going into that course of study. Tana, it is over to you. Looking forward to hearing more about home language and first additional language and how do we choose between these. Tana, let's unmute you there.
Thank you.
There we go.
Jose, thanks a lot. Thank you very much and welcome to everyone this afternoon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the differences between our home languages and our first additional languages. As you've heard, that we are very excited that we are starting a new language next year, first additional level, isiZulu. So it's going to be a revelation and a mighty change. So I hope some of you are interested. Right, the first big difference between the two languages, the home language and the first additional language, is the time allocation. Home language, we don't have the language structures, the separate time for home language structures anymore. No time is allocated for language structures because by this phase, learners would be familiar with the basics of grammar. That's what they assume. We have, however, for example, have the excellent advanced English guide on the Plus Store. So you can have a look if you want to have a guide for the language. And this guide is excellent for the vision of all aspects in English. Our next difference is the comprehension. Home language, in home language, there's richer content in the text, and where FIL, the texts and the questions are more simple. The questions in home language, the learners are, There are more questions in the home language where the learners should critically discuss the use and the choice of the language. And as said, in FIL, it's more simple, but it's not a second language, as Suzanne said, is a first additional. So they'll have to know everything and the structures. And our next difference is our text. Prescribed text for home language, we have a novel, a drama, and poetry, where in FIL, we choose between these four, the novel, the drama, the poetry, and the short stories. However, it's not the child's choice. The impact learning delivery team, the languages team, and Sakai prescribe some novel, drama, or poetry for the learners. So they can't choose these, if they want to do the novel and the poetry, you have to do what impact prescribed. I just want to say home language is not exclusively for home language speakers, for mother tongue speakers. It's really for those candidates who love literature and who wish to extend themselves academically. As said, it's compulsory to take at least one home language, but you are allowed to take two. You have to have a home language and one FIL, but you can't take English home language and English FIL. You have to, it should be different. So just keep that in mind. Then over to assessments. We do assessments according to Sakai and Sakai's regulations. We have written tasks, language tests, literature assignments, orals, and then 3 different exam papers and in November and the prelims for grade 12. In June, there's only 2 papers. In November, it's the comprehension, summary and language, literature and writing, and the June exams is the comprehension, summary and language, and then the literature. The orals, we add them together and that will be a paper on its own. Let me tell you more about the orals. Grade 10 and 11 will require a competent assessor. I really want to emphasize that it should be a competent person. Not only for your child's sake, but for your sanity too. A competent assessor for grade 10 and 11 orals is a qualified English or Afrikaans or isiZulu the language teacher from next year with experience in the relevant grade. So you can't take a grade 4 Afrikaans teacher to assess grade 12 orals. It won't work because they don't know and they won't know the curriculum. The competent assessor does not need to be pre-approved by impact, and they must adhere to the subject specifications and guidelines. We give the rubrics, so they can't use their own rubrics. And then you have to ensure that the copies of the rubrics are kept for a minimum of 3 years for moderation purposes. And please, please, please don't throw it away because, yeah, everyone will be in trouble. The parents or the facilitator should upload the marks as given by the competent assessor. Then grade 12, it's so important. Learners will require an impact-approved assessor for their orals. What is an impact-approved assessor? We have to approve the assessor. Why? Because it's grade 12. It is the end of the road for our learners, and it's a hectic schedule they're on. So the assessors as the needs to have the approved experience. It should have a SACE certification, and they need to have the relevant qualifications. Grade 12 teacher in the relevant subject, but everything must go through impact. So please, just if it's not the impact approved assessor, there's no way that we can take those marks. Any orals not assessed by impact assessor will receive a 0 mark. So please keep that in mind too. Our literature is very important. Our literature in the FET phase is the most important part of, because in home language, everything we do is at this stage around the literature, the writing and the reading and the talking. So there's no, as said, no more language parts for the home language, a little bit for our FIL learners, but we read a lot of novels and poems, and we analyze them, and we have in home language our drama, and I think Cara will do the handout of the literature list in the chat box now, so that you can see what should be read. The benefits of reading, I think everyone knows and wants their children to read, and we try really hard to get the best books and the best poems that will help and encourage children to read. So the benefits, it enhances vocabulary, stimulates creative thinking, and improves writing skills. So the reading and writing goes hand in hand. Helps with the spelling and improves critical language use, and what to read during the FET, just what you get your hands on. Letters, reports, newspapers, magazine articles, dialogues, cartoon strips, and advertisements. Anything, just read. That will help your comprehension, your vocabulary. It will help with everything. So please read. That will help you will see it on your marks. Thank you, Suzanne. Over to you.
Thank you, Tana. Just quickly on our upcoming webinars, like I've said, this is the first of a series of webinars that we are presenting on subject choices. So thanks, Tana. We can have a look at some of those dates. Parents, you will, as always, see our ads on Facebook or receive an email, but these are the upcoming dates, the closest dates. Maths and Maths Lit on the 4th of August. This is this coming Thursday, 10th of August. We have the Commercial Sciences. We'll go into detail around Business Studies, Accounting, Economics. 11th of August on the Social Science, 16th on Arts, and the 18th on the Services subjects. You can also find the upcoming webinar, the links to these webinars on OLP. You can just navigate to Resources and General Documents 2022. There's a whole list of upcoming webinars. And if you'd like to have a look at this one again, just allow for 24 hours and you'll have access to the link on the webinar recordings. For those not yet part of Impact, Cara, I've posted the link to the recording for the upcoming webinars in the chat. So just have a look at the chat function. If you would like to get in contact with us, as always, our 087 number, or you can send an email to info@impact.co.za with your questions. Join our Facebook groups, especially the FET Facebook closed group. Please just make sure that when you do join us, that it is that you make use of the student number. This is a closed group, or you can visit our website for updated information. And then webinars such as these are presented throughout the year.